It was just a regular Saturday evening in June 2020 when neighbors at Victory Park Estate in Lagos saw Chris Ndukwe and his fiancée, Olamide Ali, jogging side by side. Anyone watching them that evening would have said they looked like a couple, deeply in love, laughing, moving together, enjoying the cool evening air. Nobody knew that what they would hear the very next day would leave the whole estate in total shock. Olamide had come to visit Chris that Saturday, accompanied by her nanny, a 22-year-old woman who often assisted her in looking after her two young sons. The children, aged 7 and 3, had also come along. It was reported that Chris had asked Olamide to bring the boys around so they could all spend time together as a family, something they had done many times before, even though the couple did not live under the same roof. Chris stayed at Lekki while Olamide lived with her parents at Ugba. Later that Saturday, Chris was said to have sent a security man out on an errand to buy him a roll of sellotape. It appeared like such a small harmless request at the time. The security guard didn't think twice about it. Nobody could have imagined what that tape would later be used for. That evening, after their jog, Olamide offered to prepare dinner for Chris. It was such a simple, loving gesture, the kind any woman would do for the father of her children. After they ate, night fell over the estate and the household settled in for sleep. The nanny and the two boys were given a separate room, while Olamide went in to spend the night with Chris in his room. Everything seemed calm. Nobody suspected anything unusual, but sometime in the middle of the night, or in the early hours of that Sunday, loud music suddenly began blaring from Chris's room. The sound was heavy, deafening, and completely out of place at that hour of the night. It jolted the nanny awake. Confused and a little worried, she got up and walked to the door of Chris's room to check on the couple. She knocked. There was no response. She knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing but the pounding music. Growing anxious, the nanny reached out to a neighbor for help. The neighbor, sensing something was wrong, alerted the estate security team. The security men came to the door and tried to get in, knocking repeatedly and calling out the couple's names. But there was only silence behind the music. With no response coming from inside, the estate security made the decision to call in the police. When police mobile officers arrived, they too knocked on the door and got nothing back. Left with no choice, they forced the door open. What greeted them inside was a sight so horrifying that it would soon make headlines across the country. Olamide Ali was found lying lifeless on the floor in a pool of her own blood. Her hands and legs had been bound tightly and her mouth had been sealed shut with sellotape. Her body bore multiple deep stab wounds. Her hair, which had been braided into dreadlocks, had been completely shaved off her head. Beside her body, 2 blood-stained kitchen knives lay on the floor. Also found in the room were 3 empty cans of Red Bull energy drink and a pair of pliers. And then there was Chris. He too lay motionless with a whitish foamy substance coming out of his mouth. 2 empty bottles of sniper insecticide were discovered close to where he lay. The room told a story of unimaginable horror, but at that moment, nobody could yet say exactly what had happened between the two of them behind that closed door. To understand how 2 people who were jogging happily together just a day before could end up like this, one has to look back at their history together. Chris and Olamide had been in a relationship for 7 years. In that time, they welcomed 2 sons into the world, a boy who was then 7 and another who was 3. Their relationship, however, was never simple. Those who knew them described it as complicated, with the couple going on and off multiple times over the years. Eventually, under pressure from Olamide's family, who wanted the couple to finally settle down and get married, a wedding date was fixed. But this would not be the first time marriage plans came up between them. As far back as 2018, a wedding had already been scheduled for the month of October that year. In a voice note that later surfaced after her death, Olamide could be heard confiding in a friend that she was not sure she wanted to go through with the marriage. She explained that although they had 2 children together and had known each other for years, she did not feel that children alone were a good enough reason to marry someone. She admitted she was not sure they truly knew each other well enough to build a marriage on.
Alright, so this is the thing. We've had a very up and down relationship. We've broken up one too many times and gotten back together, and broken up and gotten back together. And this time around, we're supposed to do everything next month, that's October, but I don't want children to be the only reason I'll get married. and we're having a lot of issues. Like, let me just basically say, I'm not sure we really know each other. Yeah, we've been together for years, but anyway, a broken relationship is it's better than a broken marriage. So
That October 2018 wedding was never held. The date was pushed forward, eventually landing in August 2020. Chris had even reportedly told friends about the wedding plans, informing a comedian friend that he wanted him to be the master of ceremony at the event, and telling other close friends, who happened to be doctors, that he wanted them to accompany him to complete the necessary legal documentation for the marriage. About 3 weeks before that horrific Sunday, Chris had moved into the house at Victory Park Estate. Neighbors understood that he was preparing the home, getting ready to finally settle down with Olamide and their 2 boys as a family. But none of that would come to pass. Piecing together what investigators and sources close to the family believe happened that night, the picture that emerges is deeply disturbing. On that Saturday evening, Chris was said to have consumed 3 cans of Red Bull energy drink and had almost finished an entire bottle of Hennessy. With the alcohol and energy drinks in his system, he called Olamide into the room to join him. Before she came in, he turned the volume of his music all the way up, loud enough to drown out whatever sounds might come from that room afterward. Once Olamide was inside, Chris used the sellotape, the very same tape he had sent a security man to buy earlier that day, to bind her hands and legs and to seal her mouth shut. He then picked up a pair of pliers and began pulling out her braids from the roots, one after another. After this, he took up the kitchen knives and stabbed her a total of 11 times until she stopped breathing. Once Olamide was gone, Chris reached for the 2 bottles of Sniper and drank them down, ultimately joining her on the other side.
But looking at all the things recovered from the scene, one may safely say that he actually planned it. That could be the reason why he extended that invitation for her to come that weekend, preparing to murder her. Because it's not just too easy to assemble those things within a short time. 2 empty bottles of Snipers, I'm sure he can't just get them within seconds. He must have planned it. Kitchen knives, that is not the kitchen. That is not their dining. And kitchen knives in the bedroom, definitely he has reason why he kept those knives there. So the whole scenario pointed towards the fact that he murdered her, then took his own life also. What caused that? One cannot tell at the moment. We are still asking the question. Investigators are still asking that question, and hopefully they find answer for that question too, as to what was the immediate cause. But remotely, as I earlier said, it is established that they are having crisis.
In the aftermath, many people struggle to understand what could have driven Chris to commit such an act against the mother of his children. Rumors began to circulate that the couple had recently done a DNA test needed for a Canadian visa application, and that the results had raised questions about the paternity of their second son. Some claimed this discovery had triggered Chris's rage. However, Olamide's family firmly denied this rumor, insisting that Olamide had never had a child outside her relationship with Chris, and that both boys clearly resembled their father. To put the matter to rest once and for all, the family arranged for their own DNA test to confirm the paternity of the children. As the shock of the murder settled in, more disturbing details about Chris began to surface. People who knew him described him as a man with a short temper, someone known among friends for being violent toward the women he dated. One particularly chilling account emerged from his past, an allegation that years earlier in Port Harcourt, Chris had attempted to kill an ex-girlfriend by pushing her from the second floor of a building. That woman reportedly survived the attack, and her family relocated her all the way to Canada, fearing for her safety. In the wake of this tragedy, Olamide and Chris's 2 young sons were left as orphans, with no mother and no father to raise them. Members of Olamide's community rallied together to raise funds for the boys' education and upkeep, setting up a trust fund to be managed by a reputable financial institution to secure their future. Donations poured in from people moved by the tragic story. all hoping to give the two innocent children some form of stability after losing both parents in such a brutal way. This story shows yet again how dangerous domestic relationships can quietly become and how important it is to recognize the warning signs before it is too late. What do you think drove Chris to commit this heinous act? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel for more true crime stories.